And hi, I'm Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty this week. Today we're videoing on Saturday, so it's July 6th, 2011. And we have some interesting things that happened this week that we'd like to mention. The first one has to do with the debt ceiling, the stock market, and I will pass the ball to Don on that because he's the expert.
Well, it really doesn't take much expertise to smell a rat or recognize that something isn't kosher going on here. What's happening, of course, is that the stock market has been seriously sliding back to where it was before all these recent gains had been made, and that is happening conveniently on the heels of the debt ceiling deal, which pretty much objectively people on both sides of that debate have said didn't really do much, but yet you have the market tanking and a number of prominent voices saying, see, it's the Tea Party's fault, see, it's the Tea Party's fault, oh, the Tea Party got a great deal here, they really pulled one off in this debate. Well, this is just not true. Like I said, neither side really accomplished anything significant, and the fact that there are sides indicates, of course, that there's a problem. And the upshot is that it's obvious to me, and I think other people that are paying attention see that Tea Party conservative types are being set up to take the blame for the economic implosion that is gaining steam, virtually certain to happen. There really isn't anything that can be done to make that change, to avert that situation, unless some drastic revamping of the economy happens. Now, whether this implosion is fast or slow is debatable, but I certainly see the beginnings of some serious finger pointing here, and there are some real solutions that I'd like to throw out there that I've been mentioning. Bill Still's work. One of the things that we want to keep in mind is that we do need, obviously, to rein in the government. The government has gotten way too big and bloated, and people are rightly suspicious of any idea of economic reform that places the control of the monetary system in the hands of Congress, which it is constitutionally. But when you've got the foxes in charge of the hen house, they're not going to act responsibly. So it's a catch-22 situation, and we have to, as the American people, we have to become informed about how the money is being used. And of course, there's a lot of things that should be completely taken off the table. There are a lot of people that are dependent on the system, that have paid into the system. So we have a mess on our hands, but we want to keep in mind that the government should decrease in size. One of the ideas I keep seeing out there that does make sense to me is just to keep the debt ceiling in place and to let that act as a balanced budget amendment, because that has never happened. We have continual deficit spending. So why not use that? Well, the problem with that is that we have debt that is increasing. We have this asymptotic curve, this growth curve that is going off the charts, just because that's what happens when debt-based monetary systems get to this point in the game. The debt is growing at an outrageous rate. So the whole economic system needs to be revamped. We need to stop dealing with the debt, and Ron Paul has put forward a a bill to actually lop off the 1.6 trillion in debt that's owed to the Federal Reserve, and that's an awesome start. That's the kind of thinking we need, and we need more of it in order to begin to get this thing under control. We need to have a revolution in terms of how we think about money in the United States, and it's only just beginning. We're seeing the beginnings of debate, so tune in and learn more about that. There's a lot going on.
So, if I understand correctly, when money is minted, it is minted by the Federal Reserve System, and it is immediately owed back. The moment it's put in circulation, it's created as debt. So, all of our money in the United States is owed. The moment it goes out, it's a debt.
Mm-hmm.
There's no money minted. Oh, it's in circulation. I think I'll borrow some money. Now there's debt. It is created as debt.
Yeah, the monetary system is debt based. But there's a distinction that's important to make. And when you say minted, I immediately think of coins being minted. But coins are actually not debt. The bills are debt, but the coins are not, which is why Bill still has this video out that I tweeted last week saying that we should pay off the national debt in quarters. And of course, it's being somewhat fictitious. It's a absurdity to make a point that coins are not debt-based, but bills are. And except for certain types of bills which have existed previously in history, the ones that John F. Kennedy created, the ones that were the greenbacks in the Civil War period. And people don't like to mention the JFK ones because that had just gotten started. But the greenbacks, we need to have a debate about that, because there are a lot of people that are saying, well, that was a fiasco, it became worthless, people papering their walls, etc. But what happens when a sovereign nation, the United States, starts taking control of its currency, the powers that be that want them to borrow instead of create their own money, they have a vested interest in sabotaging that system, so you get a lot of counterfeiting. Now, counterfeiting technology is a lot better than it was before, so I don't think we necessarily have to fall into that trap, but we do need to get rid of the problem of having the foxes guarding the hen house and you creating money to do whatever they want to with it. That's a huge problem that we need to resolve by basically Americans becoming more informed and more diligent in managing their system. But it's like I said before, it's a catch-22. But the beginning of it is there's debates going on between these different monetary solutions, and we need to get Americans thinking about what possible solutions are.
And another part of that legislation, which was passed this week, is what we lovingly call the Council of 13. There is a super Congress created by that legislation, which is a 12-member board, 6 from the House of Representatives and 6 from the Senate. And this 12-member super Congress will be initiating legislation, and according to the wording, it is in the case of an emergency such as the debt ceiling. However, there's no definition of an emergency, so anything can be called an emergency. Many people believe that this super Congress will be used to go after such things as Second Amendment rights and other troublesome issues that the Congress has had. Would you like to comment?
Right. One of the absolute worst things about this came out a few days after we discussed it last, which is a very important thing, is that the people like Ron Paul that have raised objections to the idea of increasing the debt ceiling, they will be blackballed from being a part of this super council. So what you're doing is you're eliminating debate. This is the very first thing that happens in a totalitarian regime, is you stifle dissent. The thing that has made America great is that we can all come to the table and we can hash it out. We can just there's no viewpoint that won't be heard, although of course that's never been absolutely true, but it's been the ideal. When you have a proposal like this that eliminates dissent from the get-go, you've got a serious problem. This really is the beginning of the end of representative democracy. So we encourage everybody to oppose this whole Council of 13 idea, the 6-member super Congress, six on each house to be 12, and then the president is 13. It's a monstrous idea. Ron Paul correctly called it monstrous. It really does circumvent the Constitution. You don't have the ability for your congressman that's not a part of this council to introduce a bill. Supposedly in the name of streamlining government that's become a problem, then you have these tremendous abuses coming in. It effectively, like we said last week, gives Hitlerian type power to the president. So this is extremely troublesome, and especially when people can be blackballed that they can't be on this council because of their views. It's just horrible.
Sure, so it's not like it's an elected panel at all. It will be appointed. And the next topic that we wish to mention is the fact that it became public knowledge this week that the CIA has been helping one particular Mexican cartel, the Sinaloa Cartel, by allowing them to bring cocaine over the Mexican-American border with their full knowledge, the CIA's full knowledge, so that they can shut down the other cartels that might give them competition.
Yeah, it's really just the ones that will pay their cut to the banksters. They're the ones that the government endorses. So you get the establishment system endorsing a particular cartel because they're paying their cut in their drug laundering money to the system, and you've got this international cooperation between thieves. That's really all it is. You've got a criminal government that is favoring the establishment side that props itself up. That's really all it is, and it's just really sad that it has degenerated to this, but encouraging that this news is coming out, that people are seeing this drug trafficking for what it is and recognizing that it is government endorsed, sad to say.
Shocking. There was another shocking event this week, and we've been talking among ourselves lately and how so many things happen so quickly that are so significant. The kinds of things that we used to see occur maybe every 10 to 15 years, it seems like there are 2 or 3 of them a week now. This week, not that this is necessarily monumentally significant, but it's a sign of the times which does lend its significance. The Rawesome Food Club was raided this week, and between $20,000 and $50,000 worth of raw and natural foods were confiscated. Money was taken from the cash register. This is a food club, so that everyone who purchases there owns shares of the livestock from which the dairy products come, so on and so forth. So everyone who shops there is a member, and it's a little more in-depth than, like, yeah, you're a member of Costco or Sam's Club, but this is a little more, they're a little more involved. They've signed off, they're willing to accept any risk implicit in the consumption of raw dairy products, etc., etc. Their paperwork, the paperwork for the members to become members, was confiscated. The club's computers were confiscated. The place was more or less cleaned out. I think they had a few jars left of honey and vinegar or something like that. They just placed all this food on the back of a semi and drove it away. And of course the guy who runs it is indicted, And I'm not even sure what the charges are, but this does not bode well for the future of natural foods and supplements.
So how could this happen? What excuse do they have? Well, this is supposedly the fallout from the Food Safety Act that passed last December. This is what is going on in the name of food safety. There was no notification that we've heard. I don't suspect there was any. This is what seems to happen when governments go bad, is that there's just immediate clamping down on enforcement, no due process. Why? Because the due process would allow opportunity for the truth to come out. It would allow opportunity for testimony from people that were extremely healthy because of these foods, and that had enabled them to benefit tremendously. That kind of thing, the powers that be don't want to come out because they want to control the system. What you have really is a death machine in the form of, that's masquerading as medicine, that doesn't want people to become healthy and to use alternatives that are less processed and more natural and more healthy. So this is a threat to the system that was being shut down. The silver lining in the cloud is that, again, people are seeing tyranny that have been previously asleep. There is a lot of people on the left that are very into natural foods, and they've always thought, well, it's good that the government is helping us be more environmentally conscious, and it's good that we have a green agenda that is enforced. Well, these people are now seeing another side of this, and that's encouraging, an encouraging development that we will be able to unify as Americans against this type of thing. A government that says what you could put into your body is a government that is way, way out of control.
So the FDA says it's fine if the foods you eat are loaded with high fructose corn syrup, which is proven to increase numbers of diabetes. It's fine if infant vaccines are given, which will give a child, I think it was 25,000 times the amount of mercury considered safe for an adult male. It's fine if all these GMO products are on the shelf and freely available, even though third generation will be sterile after eating GMOs for 3 generations, proven with rats and mice. That's all okay with the FDA. But, whoa, there's raw milk, hoo-hoo, and you might get a stomach ache. Careful. Watch out for that raw milk that'll give you a stomach ache. Forget that in 3 generations there'll be sterility in your family. Forget that your child has autism from fluoride in the water and dangerous levels of mercury in vaccines. Forget all that. That's okay. But look out for the raw milk. Oops.
Yeah. I want to say that from the beginning, focusing on milk, because that's really key here, the big agribusiness wanted to be able to grow the dairies and to be what happens is you get big business that loves monopolies. They don't like the small business family farm type situation. Previously in America, prior to the growth of big agribusiness, you had small family dairies that would have home delivery, and the products were not pasteurized. They were live, raw milk, and that was the purpose of the delivery. So would it be immediately refrigerated as soon as it was delivered to the door in refrigerator trucks. So that with that kind of a system, pasteurization wasn't necessary. So decades ago, the pasteurization was pushed as being the great cure for these harmful things that could be in milk. So there's always this emphasis on the government keeping you safe in order to advance a monopolistic agenda that's just constant. If we as people are responsible and make informed decisions, then these monopolies can't use that as an excuse to gain ground and to crowd out the little guy. So it's so important to have a mindset of personal responsibility. I will choose to put raw milk, raw cheese, dairy products, whatever, in my body because I know that that builds up the probiotic organisms that will keep me healthy. And in fact, I do that. We do use raw dairy products, and we know, I personally have benefited tremendously from that. From my digestive tract has benefited tremendously from using raw milk, so which I use to make kefir and etc. So these things are really important, and it's really important to not just go along with the system, but to take personal responsibility. And that if each one of us does that, then these monsters can't get out of control.
And I want to go back to one thing that Don said about he mentioned the Food Safety Act and mentioned that how laws are rammed through. In this country, the jury system is intended to be the final veto opportunity for laws. If a law is passed that's a bad law, a citizen jury can nullify the law by finding the defendant guilty. The problem that has occurred in this country, and we've learned this with our friend Ian Garland, is that people are denied jury trials. Just there it is. Ian Garland held in jail since March without bail. Horrible conditions. You can see it on the website. What is that? What the website called? Oh, fastandfuriousjusticenow.org. There are letters that outline the conditions that Ian's been kept in. It's incredible pressure on him to want to get out of jail. He was told, I had the privilege of speaking with him on the phone this morning. He was told that he would have to wait for 2 years for a jury trial. That is not justice. That is not what's guaranteed us by the Constitution. However, all things flowing the way they're supposed to, properly functioning, a jury is a way for the people to say this is a bad law. So I think that what we need to do is demand that justice be more swift and that people are given jury trials.
Yeah, and even within the jury system, there's this tendency for people to say, to believe whatever the judge tells them. And I know that Cindy's been watching some, I know you posted some videos on the Fully Informed Jury Association and some training about that. But people are too sheep-like. In America, we used to be, our tradition is as proud supporters of individualism, and the jury is the place where the buck stops here. It's not the jury is not the servant of the judge. The jury are 12 or 27 in the case of grand jury, autonomous, individual, sovereign human beings that are the foundation of the justice system in America. So we need to accept that responsibility and not be agents of this or that. And we need to regain that sense of individual sovereignty, and the foundation of justice in America is the jury system.
Hopefully we will be able to get that right in the very near future. Some very sad news that you have probably already heard is that 20 Navy SEALs were killed in a helicopter accident. And these Navy SEALs happen to be from Team 6, which happens to be the team that supposedly caught and killed Osama bin Laden. So we personally do not believe that Osama was recently captured. We believe that the whole thing was staged, and very sadly, and with deep apologies to the families of these Navy SEALs, it appears that this is part of a cover-up.
And the larger picture being that if you are ever coerced or asked to be a part of something that you know is wrong, that you are helping to promote a lie for whatever purposes, even if it appears to be good, you may think that's a wise thing to do in the immediate situation, but in the long term, you're expendable, because if you ever talked and revealed that what you were a part of did not happen the way it was promoted, you're a danger to the system. So you might as well just have the attitude, I'm just going to go along and I'm just going to speak the truth no matter what. I'm not going to go along with what the system wants me to do. Learn to have the mindset of standing for the truth. This kind of ties in with the next article about vote rigging. I just watched a video that's been up on YouTube since April, and it's something that I've known about for a while, but it's something that's worth informing people about, and it's how dangerous computer vote counting is, especially by private companies, especially when the source code isn't available because it's proprietary. These are notorious for rigging elections, and there is testimony of a computer programmer that says he does know that this did happen in the Ohio elections in, I believe it was the 2008. So it might have been an earlier election. I'm not sure what Ohio election he was referred to, where he was approached and said, we want the code to do this. And he knew that what he was being asked to do was illegal, and yet he decided to testify in court about what he was asked to do. So, yeah, we're far too trusting, and people can be very easily manipulated by a media that's controlled by a very small number of corporations. You have to get out there and dig for a real truth. It's important for any computer code that's used for public purposes to be open source code and available, inspectable at all stages of the game. But hand counting is much better. It's a famous quote from Stalin, who said, it's not the voters that decides the election, it's who counts the votes that decides the election. And what better way to hide that from the people than computer voting machines. So kudos to the programmers that are exposing this fraud, and we need to say no to computerized voting.
We have the link to the YouTube video that we're referring to in the details on YouTube. So check that out if you're interested. And if you happen to be a military person who's been asked to do things that you suspect or know are wrong, you feel all alone, you're not sure how you should handle the situation, there is an organization called Oath Keepers, and we will also place that link within the details in our YouTube channel for this video. We also want to mention what's being called the DREAM Act, the naturalization of illegal immigrants, and Don has done some research on that, and I know he has some comments.
Right. What's happening is that basically by executive order, President Obama is implementing the DREAM Act, which did not pass in Congress. It failed twice, but that's what happens in a tyranny. Is you get, once the bureaucracy is established well enough, it can be just told to implement things even if they are law, and by the time it filters down to the enforcers, they don't know. They think they're implementing the law. So what the recent executive orders are doing is it's saying, don't touch anybody that's an illegal if they are either a student, I think it's even a family member of somebody who is a student, or if they're in the military. And I mean, there should be red flags right there. Why shouldn't there be something in the educational system that should require that somebody's an American citizen, or something in the military recruitment that requires proof of citizenship? So it's obvious that the system has purposely allowed these holes to in checks to be there so that you would get this problem of this illegal immigration. It could easily have been tightened up and required greater scrutiny at all kinds of different levels, including banking and loans and schools and military, all that kind of thing. But you have the opposite happening. You have the create the problem, offer the solution. The problem being, oh, there's so many illegals. The solution being, well, we'll just pick the valuable ones that are involved in the things that we endorse. And so the system is out of control. It's not responsive to the people, and we're having a breakdown in terms of what America is really all about.
And the whole idea of allowing for a lot of people to come in from various cultures, the phrase multiculturalism, which is promoted as a means of helping people understand one another, care about one another, it actually is proven to have the reverse effect, and it keeps you off balance. You know, when you're at the grocery store and they've moved everything, and you know that feeling of just, what's going on? The confusion. It actually creates a mental state that makes you more suggestible. Stores do that on purpose to throw you off balance so that you will notice things that you've never noticed before. I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad, but it's something that we need to be aware of in our day-to-day lives. It's the same thing is being done with multiculturalism. It has the same sort of effect. Used to be you shook hands with your next door neighbor, you kind of knew where they were at. Culturally, you were similar to them, and I'm by no means promoting racism. We must have love for everybody. But being in a situation that used to feel secure, where you felt like you knew everybody, you understood everybody, suddenly it's not secure anymore. It causes you to feel off balance. Resentments tend to skyrocket. Just this past week there was some kind of a huge, I think it was some state fair, a race-motivated attack between two racial groups. I don't even want to get into the details because the details don't matter. We need to love one another, but throwing people together and putting pressure on them societally is not a recipe for peace. It's a recipe for anger, fear, hatred, violence, riots. And we became aware this week that many Somalians were brought in. They're Muslims, and Somalia is a country that has severe hatred between Christians and Muslims. Many Somalians were sponsored by the State Department, brought in for the sake of multiculturalism, given homes, given welfare, so on and so forth. And there's been violence that has resulted from this.
Again, this is a case of create the problem, although you don't want to be seen to be creating it, you want to, but then offer the solution. And it's always leading in the direction that the people don't want to go, but they're giving, that's the only option that they have to go. So the problem is, oh, these poor people that are oppressed in a foreign country, that's the excuse for bringing them into America. That's the excuse of offering them a piece of the pie here where life is good. But what's really going on there is they're being brought in as a social wedge into a culture where they are virtually guaranteed, in this case, not to be able to be accommodated because of their background of severe hatred. So you have a situation where the system is actually promoting animosity in order to bring about a division in the previously strong culture where there was a lot of trust, and now you have this great distrust between people developing that becomes racial, that is intended to divide and conquer. So this is what society is what it's being pushed in order to break down the society instead of build it up, so that the government can offer the solution. As Cindy was talking there just now, you might have noticed how many times she mentioned the word security and feeling secure. Well, the government has a solution for that. We have the Department of Homeland Security. Now, don't you feel secure that we have this department that's created especially to address the issues that have been created on purpose in secret? So that's how it works, folks. That is how the tyranny is advanced in secret by those that understand social engineering. This is not on accident. This is not natural development. This is social engineering in process, and you're being herded into thinking that the government is going to be your protector when you feel insecure. So see through it. It's a scam. Regain your individual integrity and your individual sovereignty.
Yes, please do. And do it quickly, please. We do have some good news this week that we wanted to share. A couple of things. I'll just mention them both, and then I think Don will have some comments on both of them. We learned this week, and it's not new news, we just came across it, that the NAFTA superhighway has been, at least temporarily, defeated in Texas. Actually, it sounds more permanent, at least this leg of the highway. I don't know about the rest of it, but this leg of the highway, they're not looking to build it at all anymore. It's pretty much buried because local people stood up and said no. And another little bit of good news is the fact that there was a smart meter victory in Maine. A judge in Maine ruled that a utilities company can't force someone to put a smart meter on their house. So, little progress there.
Yeah, it's the NAFTA superhighway thing. That is very, very hopeful. I'm not sure it's 100% dead all the way from Mexico to Canada, but at least in this one area of Texas, it's dead because, not just because people stood up and said no, they had that mindset, but they had to go to the next level and find a mechanism by which they could effectively say no. So they got into the legal mechanism. So we were talking about the NAFTA superhighway.
For the third time, yeah, we have some serious camera issues here, but yeah.
Okay, so the reason the NAFTA superhighway got stopped was because people learned how to exercise their legal authority in the situation. They understood the field that they were playing on. There was this clause in agreements that are between different entities that there has to be coordination clause. So these local communities learned about that, began to exercise that, and our friend Heather Goss, Tea Party leader, said that that's actually how groups like the Sierra Club always have a seat at the table, is they understand the power of the coordination clause. So this is all pointing to the importance of learning the rules of the game so that you can get involved and make a difference. We don't know if the NAFTA superhighway is really gone for good. I'm thinking that they'll just regroup and find another way to deal with this, maybe even reroute the highway. But if people all along the way find out about the coordination clause, yeah, it's really as good as dead. So that's a great thing. So, yeah, good
Excellent.
news.
Yeah, very good news. So we met with Dr. Noah, and he shared with us some valuable information regarding the history of chiropractic, the recent history, I should clarify, and how the powers that be tried to outlaw chiropractic in the 1960s. So here's Dr. Noah to explain that.
Hello, Dr. Noah.
Don. It's getting another week has gone by. Hey, Cindy, thanks for inviting me back again.
Thank you for being on our little video with us.
Yeah, I know. It's been a real treat. Yeah, it's been fun. Well, this week I thought I'd talk a little bit about my profession, chiropractic, in terms of what has happened over the last 100 years plus, in terms of what we've done, but more importantly, in terms of where people, in terms of getting information. I still, to this day, get people, well, my drug doctor says, you know, it's dangerous, it can kill you, and of course there's no science on that, but I'll give you a little background. Back in the 1930s, there was an explosion of naturopathic doctors, herbalists, different type of, midwifery, all these type of different fractions of the so-called healing arts that was out there, and the medical profession. And then
in America or
the
worldwide?
United States, but also worldwide. I mean, that also had some.
America's real center of it.
Yeah, but this is the story of the Fletcher Report, where John Paul Getty and Rockefeller came together, and so their interest was in petroleum products, and so petroleum is where drugs come from. And they just said, well, we can't have this. We don't want free enterprise. We don't want any real competition. So we're going to eliminate, basically the competition. So they created this whole panel of different, what were real doctors, and created this.
Of course, Rockefeller said, famous quote, and I'm not sure if it was that Rockefeller or his father, who said, competition is a sin.
Perfect. I didn't know that.
Quote.
Yeah, that's great, and that's exactly what they were doing.
That's what happened.
That's interesting.
They were trying to destroy
I never heard that one.
competition.
Well, that's what they did. They did destroy it.
Yeah.
So this was just kind of interesting. Back in as early as the 1960s, the American Medical Association had a panel to try to destroy the chiropractic profession because we were a threat. Here's a natural medicine approach. We were able to help people without any drugs or surgery. So just like what Don was saying,
people get well. You can't let that happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was exposed to the negative chiropractic propaganda of the 60s through my parents, who were in the traditional health profession.
Exactly.
Chiropractors were quacks.
Right, and that's what this panel in 1967, so they made it an objective to do, and these are the quotes, do everything within our power to see that chiropractic coverage under Title 18 of the Medicare law is not obtained. Do everything within our power, and these are the direct quotes from this committee on quackery, to see that recognition or listing of the U.S. Office of Education of Chiropractic accrediting is not achieved, to encourage and contain separation of the two national Chiropractic Association, and to encourage...
Divide and conquer.
That's right. Encourage the state medical associations to take an initiative in their state legislatures in regards to legislation that might affect the chiropractic profession. So, I mean, they made an all-out effort in terms of trying to eliminate this, not because we didn't get people well, not because back then we had very little bit of science, now we have a lot more in terms of effective. So, back in 1976, 5 chiropractors said, okay, this is the BS, we're not putting up with this. So they sued the AMA in terms of an antitrust type, because earlier type of ruling in 1975.
Because they really were using, and still do, use unfair practices to create their own monopoly.
That's exactly right, and that's what it was, and that's what they were sued on, the Sherman antitrust law. And we won, and we kicked their butt. And then, exactly. But still, even to this day, there's some challenges. And they were supposed to kind of get better, but now it's all under the radar. It still happens, not as much, but it's kind of a factor in terms of what's going on, in terms of where you get your information, find out the source of it.
And they know when to back off, because they know when they're actually going to have a backfire effect.
That's
so
right.
It's really interesting that they know not to push that too much, because that will expose them as the frauds that they are for.
Well, that's right.
Not really being for advancement.
Yeah, and so that's the challenge in terms of trying to get people, information. That's why I'm excited working with you and Cindy and another friend of ours, John, is having this new website of trying to educate people, give you the materials, give you the knowledge, so you take responsibility. You don't even have to see, me or another. So once again, take charge in terms of, doing it. Just like, when
you don't want a monopoly? What's wrong with you?
No, I'm a real radical here. Exactly right. But, way back, most people worked on their cars, and, that kind of has been lost, but trying to instill that, there's still websites on do-it-yourself stuff, and so we're going to try to do that with healthcare, too.
Self-reliance.
Yeah.
That's right. So, so I just wanted to kind of go over what the science has shown. So, since that ruling there was a number of different studies that were done. There was a Canadian study. It showed that, that in and this is their quote. Once again, this was a government commissioned by the Ontario Ministry of Health, not Chiropractic. And what they quoted is they found that injured workers with low back pain returned to work much sooner who were treated by chiropractors than by medical doctors. So here are medical doctors looking at the science, seeing the research that was achieved here.
Well, that's good for Mr. Rockefeller, because he said he doesn't want a nation of thinkers, he wants a nation of workers.
Exactly.
So that's he got it back to work soon. So
that's good.
That should make Mr. Rockefeller happy.
That's right. Archives of Internal Medicine showed that chiropractic was showed decrease in terms of cost, which is the big concern. Here's an article here from a medical health services research, 2010, showing that typical back pain problem is $2,090. Of course, it's a lot higher now. And chiropractic was $578. So,
That's great.
Yeah, so over 300% more costly, and as the studies show here, we're once again hundreds of times more effective in terms of helping people. There's another study here from the North Carolina study. These were once again workers' compensation. We did better on that. One of my favorite is that back in 1994, the United States government put together a think tank panel. Once again, these were 11 medical doctors, a couple chiropractors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and a couple lay people, and they were going to review 4,000 scientific articles in terms of what was the best thing for acute low back pain, and what did they find out was most effective?
Chiropractic?
Exactly, and exercise. Exactly right. But you never hear about that. Once again, this was decided on what's called consensus. All the members there, both MDs and chiropractors, all had to agree that yes, the science supports this. So it couldn't kind of gang up and say all the chiropractors are on this side of the room and all the drug doctors on it, and they had a battle. They had to do with consensus there. So that once again is not very well heard of, because once again it doesn't fit the agenda of the drug industry and the drug doctors are going.
And the surgery, which is of course very lucrative,
right?
Yeah,
Hundreds of
but
thousands of dollars.
Not very effective.
Here's kind of like the Super Bowl. This was published in the most prestigious medical journal on surgery and spine problems called Spine. This was in 2003. So they actually had compared chiropractic, acupuncture, and drug doctors. And they looked at all different factors in terms of improvement, range of motion, and guess who won again?
Chiropractors.
Witch doctors?
Yeah, no, don't come close. So it's,
Chiropractors.
Yeah, chiropractors like that. So I mean, that's the difficulty in terms of trying to educate people. That's the last person you really want to go to. And then to be fair, there are some. I've actually worked with a couple of spine surgeons that say, yeah, try chiropractic first. If that doesn't work, then come to see me. Very rare, because when you have like a 95% success rate, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of spine surgeons around. So those are pretty, once again, pretty radical medical doctors to kind of go along like that.
Well, how many chiropractors really are effective? Would you say 80, 90% or less? Most chiropractors really can make as much a difference as any other one?
Yeah, in terms of, once again, in terms of basically, musculoskeletal problems. Now, one of the things we'll talk about for Ann, which is still kind of even a touchy area within my own profession, because we've kind of, lost a little bit of our direction, is that when you adjust the body, you're not just helping the back feel better, you're actually working on the nerve or the nervous system, and you get what's called a somatovisceral response. So when I adjust your thoracic area, that's actually helping your heart, and there's studies showing that blood pressure goes down, heart works better like that. So that's an area that, boy, drug doctors should almost flip out on, because now you've gone outside your box where, okay, you're good neck and mid-back and maybe, low back and wrists and stuff, but don't you dare go into cardiology, pulmonary specialty. That's our domain, and you're really getting difficulty. And so that's still a kind of an uncharted type of area.
That is what I had in mind, because I know that you do get into all areas, but there are quite a few chiropractors that only intend to deal with the spine.
Well, in my profession, there's kind of like, just like they were saying, two camps there. There's what are called the straights. Those are strictly musculoskeletal, and they're great doctors, and they work on that. That's where my basic training was. Then, as with any other type of health profession, medical profession too, you can go into other subspecialties, and that's where I've gone into herbal medicine and homeopathy and vitamins and nutraceuticals, and using other type of devices like lasers and pulse magnetic. And so there is a fraction of doctors that do that too. So it just depends on what you're really looking for. A straight chiropractor could do you well. And obviously I'm biased. I think, that's why I've trained, is not only can I do that, but I have all these other resources with me to even go beyond the normal type of benefit in terms of just musculoskeletal problems.
So I don't know if legally I can say this, but you are a healer.
Yeah, well, no, you can say that, yeah.
Essentially, you're not just a fixer, you're a healer.
Right. We try to have the body heal, instruct my patients tools necessary to be able to continue that so they don't become dependent on me, empower them to be able to take charge of their life. And that's challenging. We talked about the society has now been created where people are dependent.
Yeah.
There's an entitlement, not only in terms of the government in terms of financial, but entitlement of so-called sick care. I'm entitled to not be healthy and just have someone be an enabler or a codependent on me and continue my woes. And then there's a whole system. Okay, well, I'm disabled. I can't do anything. Poor me. I want this and that.
And then they feel like they're entitled because they paid into this, so they want to get out. And
right.
That ties into that other.
Even though it's 300% more going out than the 100% they gave in, but don't confuse me with facts.
Yeah. It's the person we live in a society where people they would never steal from their neighbor.
Right.
But
That's what they are.
They say, government, I want you to steal from my neighbor for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
whoa.
Strange stuff.
My head hurts.
There was a RAND study that was done, which is a think tank over at Stanford, showing with elderly, under chiropractic care, there was hospitalization, none to 3 years. Those people that were under chiropractic care didn't go to the hospital, 73.4%, but if you're a medical doctor, 50-50. So if you're under medical care, 50% of the people would be hospitalized within that, in that 3 years. But if you're under chiropractic, 73.4% did not have to go to the hospital.
Now I'm sure that's just because the chiropractors were neglecting proper care for their patients.
Of course. Oh, that's right. RAND is a medical establishment. I mean, how did they miss that?
I don't know.
Man, that was kind of kind of fascinating.
That's amazing.
How they rated now this is the patients, which is important, how they rated themselves, good to excellent, people under chiropractic care with these elderly. Let's see, the average age, let's see if I have that here, was 65, so it's kind of typical, senior citizen like that. They're people that rated themselves good to excellent. 87% of people under chiropractic care thought they were good to excellent in terms of overall health. Medical exam was 67%.
Wow.
So 20% difference there in overall poor to fair health, only 13% versus 32%.
So that's kind of saying that people that are into taking care of themselves and being proactive about their health look to the chiropractic profession to help them with that goal.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, we're just one of several. I mean, I'm focusing on chiropractic here. I mean, there's naturopaths and acupuncturists and homeopathic physicians. So I mean, there's other types in this general type of natural medicine or healer.
Allopathic versus non-allopathic.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have the allopathic, which is the typical, go for drugs and for surgery. And as what I always say, I mean, allopathic medicine, their claim to fame is acute care trauma. So when I go see the soldiers in Yountville that have all these problems, and I help them when they've gone through 12 other VA doctors and haven't helped them, they're great in terms of when they get blown up with a bomb and they're all scattered all over the place, they're able to once again sew them all back, stabilize them. That's where they start losing their effectiveness. So we can't throw them out, and I never basically state that. Studies show that's about 22% of the overall cost of so-called healthcare sick care system. So they have a place, but they don't think themselves have only 22%. They have to be 100%.
Yeah.
So they have to be all aspects like that, and that's where there's real, controversy, I think, in terms of helping people get well. So allopathic, that's what they're good at. Chronic diseases, which most people that are watching this or other types of serious things, then it becomes questionable. They did a big study. What's the cost for multiple sclerosis, where they stated absolutely that the treatment is only palliative at best, which means all it does is gives you has nothing to do with the progression of the disease. You'll still die and have a terrible life. How much do we spend on those patients with knowing full knowledge that what they do is worthless?
Was it? I think you told. Was it
$100,000 a year? Yeah. So we spend all this money for what? So what other industry?
It doesn't fix them.
What doesn't do anything?
It just lets them maintain, basically.
Well, I mean, what they do is they give them things that help them feel good. Like, you know, if I gave you and Don a bottle of Jack Daniels, I mean, sure, all your aches and pains will go away.
Right.
But until the next morning when you have a hangover and you have to drink some more, and then you become an alcoholic. That's what all these people are, drug addicts.
Yeah.
So legalize marijuana, you take the cost down to about.
See, that's outrageous, but it's okay.
$2,000 a year compared to $100,000.
Well, that's right. And so that's outrageous. But once again, more people are addicted to prescription drugs than all the illegal drugs combined.
Yeah, there you go.
And so that's always the kind of crazy thing. Oh, well, we can't legalize, you know, marijuana. That's a gatekeeper for more. No, the real focus.
It's really about their monopoly.
Exactly.
That's what it's really about.
That's what it is. Yeah. If they're really concerned about addictions, they would first address prescription drugs. Of course, they're not going to do that. Bravo, but that's the kind of difficulty and factors in terms of what's happening there. Just one little study that I actually had a little bit involvement with. I remember going to school and one of the doctors there was doing a study about AIDS and chiropractic adjustments, and he was looking at what's called a CD8, CD8 blood value, which is an indication of immune function. So these are 8 parameters of the immune system. And so we know with AIDS, which is immune deficiency, that's down. And he was able to show conclusively that after an adjustment, your immune system would rise substantially, up to 40–50%.
That's amazing.
Well, I remember at the school, there was a lot of pressure saying, well, we don't know whether or not we should, they did publish it, but they were actually kind of afraid that the medical establishment, once again, would flip out. And how dare you say that adjustment, even though, once again, it was a blood test, that blood test doesn't care what's going on, whether it's a chiropractor and an allopath, whatever, that's what they were at. But I can remember that there was actually concern there.
This is like you're afraid of the bully.
Yeah, well, you're like you got the Nazis around and the SS, and you're afraid to talk about anything bad because then the Gestapo is going to come in and you're going to disappear.
Yeah.
And so there was actually that kind of fear, is that the medical
in our free society,
so-called free society. So this just reminded me here of the effects of chiropractic on the immune system. Another study showing that was able to increase what's called T and beta lymphocyte numbers, once again, and natural killer cells, antibody levels, phagocyte activity, and plasma and beta endorphin levels all increase after an adjustment. So that was all published. So showing you this, what's called a neuroimmunomodulation effects of an adjustment like that. And so it's kind of an exciting field to be in, is that we have this kind of impact on patients to be able to get them well and get them healthy.
That's great.
So
you kind of push the reset button to the nervous system.
That's right. Well, your nervous system is the most important, because every cell of your body is communicated with your immune system. With your nervous system. And now we know that the immune system and the nervous system are one and the same. There's no difference between the two in terms of how they're functioning, how they're regulated, how they're all work together like that.
Well, the immune system is a whole different animal, but it's so tightly connected.
That's right.
The immune system is in your gut. That's sort of a new concept for a lot of people.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all interrelated.
So a little story about the chiropractic profession and our free society that we have.
Yeah.
Oh, that we don't have. That's
right. So glad you won your court case.
But the encouraging thing is that there are more and more people that are waking up, that are seeing this, and that are taking charge of their health and their personal liberties.
Yeah, it's a slow process.
It's like a sleeping giant coming awake here. It's exciting.
But to be fair, the allocation of money, the whole alternative community is less than 0.01% of what money we spend on sick care. So, it's really outrageously disproportionate in terms of the money.
It's no wonder that these guys feel so brazen in terms of their control that they have over people in society.
It is, yeah.
They have us so vastly out.
And there's a fight going on in Southern California on raw milk. They actually have people going in with guns, like they're drug addicts like that, because they're selling raw milk. Obviously that can be a public health issue, but in this country, especially in this state, with liability issues and all that being sued, raw milk is actually cleaner than pasteurized.
So how do we fight that, people? Go out and buy raw milk.
Well, that's right.
You want to see that increase. Whenever these guys come down like
contact
this,
your representative.
Hopefully
you can scare him or her, even though they're in the pocket of special interest groups. A lot of times when the voters start talking, they actually have to kowtow not to once again, the the special interest groups, but to the people that they're supposed to be representing. Which is,
We can always help.
we can always help. That's right.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thanks again, Don.
Thank
Cindy.
you.
Thanks. See you next
Victory.
time. Yeah, victory. Good. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Noah. As always, we appreciate your wisdom and input, and thanks for being a freedom fighter. We watched a couple of movies that I think merit mentioning. One was pretty good. The Missing, I say it's worth about 4 stars. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it okay. It wasn't that believable, but I enjoyed it as learning about the period and some of the culture of the times that people were going through. It takes place in New Mexico in the late 1800s, 1887 or something like that, I believe, just post-Civil War. And you had Indians marauding, you had whites joining the Indians, Indians joining the whites. It was really kind of an interesting time, and so the culture was interesting. And then you had these inventions like the photography and the phonograph and the telegraph, other things like that. So you can see this interesting mix of the old world and the new world, but some of the cultural stuff was definitely interesting. And the personal relationship stuff was also interesting, with the Tommy Lee Jones playing the estranged father of Kate Blanchett, who had a person functioning in a father role of her 2 daughters, then loses him early in the film. So there was some interesting personal relationship parts of it too.
Yeah, it was quite good. Then last evening we watched Murder by Decree, which is a Sherlock Holmes film. Christopher Plummer and James Mason and some other guys. It was 1979. They mentioned the Masons. In fact, that figured quite heavily in the plot of the movie. Do you have any thoughts?
As you know, I slept through some of it because I was tired and it wasn't all that interesting.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? You didn't know I was asleep?
Oh, okay. Maybe I did. Sorry. I was painting, so I wasn't that aware of what was going on.
But I did think I woke up to one of the key parts where they were... Basically, Sherlock Holmes came to the conclusion that this is dealing with Jack the Ripper, and of course, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle didn't write about Sherlock Holmes in connection with Jack the Ripper, but it is a story that has been on film before because it's such an obvious mix. Well, the interesting solution, or the backstory to what's going on in this with Jack the Ripper, is that this was a protected murderer, that he was actually a member of the elite or somebody acting for the elite that wanted these deaths because they were covering up something that the elites did not want to get out. So in that perspective, and the elites being primarily Masonic oriented and being able to cover up their crimes through their secrecy and their control of the legal and scientific system in London, England of that day. So this film also took place around that same time, late 1800s. So that was all very interesting, and that was also, this is worth mentioning, that it was probably earlier in American history, but I'm not sure the exact dates, but one of the first American third parties that wielded significant influence was the Anti-Masonic Party. So in America you had quite a bit of understanding that these guys were up to no good and they needed to be routed out. And so the Sherlock Holmes film, Sherlock Holmes himself I don't think is a Mason, but he sure has a lot of inside information about Masons and was able to knowledgeably take them on their own turf, so to speak, with insider knowledge. So that was interesting.
So that is pretty much our video for the week. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Don't give up your sovereignty to another. learn how to acquire it step by step. I don't think it was any magic bullet, but it's a mindset that'll take you a long way on a long journey, and a very important journey. So
Yeah.
go for it.
Be self-determined, be free. Thanks for watching.